Imagine Superman, the comic book character, in heaven. Or in your mind's eye, place him in hell, in purgatory, in any of the Christian possibilities of the hereafter. Do you see him? Picture your Superman and ask yourself, are you imagining his body or his soul? Superman or Spider-Man or Art Spiegelman, Paradiso or Sheol or the Bardo. It doesn't matter what comic book character we use or what afterlife we choose. All of them leave us with some curious questions. How do you, the audience, read or interpret these figures on a comic book page? Do the comics communicate corporeal bodies in a place beyond the flesh? Are the souls shaped like walking, talking humanoids? Or the real inquiry I want to present today, might they be surprisingly flexible figures, giving us rare access to the somatic and the spiritual both at once? I could claim that I have been studying comics for almost 40 years, but the first 20, in all honesty, don't really count. Those were spent either on the back of a school bus, on my bed, or in my dorm room, reading comics as an unabashed fan. It was only late in my college career that I began to use the tools of literary theory to unpack them. Then of narratology, of exegesis, of semiotics, of media theory, and most recently of narrative medicine, to examine what amazing things are happening not only on a 9-panel page, but also in our minds. All this has led me to lecture, teach, and publish on the power such representations have, culturally, economically, neurologically, morally, and medically. That's my field, graphic medicine. No, comics can't cure tennis elbow, neither can a surgical mask or a catheter, but they can surprisingly open unique channels of communication for improved patient care and for conceptualizations of overall health in a number of communities, particularly faith-based ones. Comics offer a unique space where representations of spiritual and medical selves can overlap and inform each other. Their interplay enables an enhanced vocabulary between healthcare education and patient experience, between cultural difference and institutional policy, or between narrative medicine and the commercial marketplace. Your Superman hovering in that hereafter is already there. You already have this capacity to parse this visual language. Let's explore what's blocking us from otherwise accessing it. In fact, we'll start by considering why medical and religious narratives are held apart from each other at all, ultimately focusing on comics. Then, we will look at whether other obstacles, outside of any medical-religious divide, might be contributing to a perceived separation between them. Does the academic or book market play a role here? And finally, we'll come to appreciate what can be done when these two spheres are allowed to combine. Their enhanced language and versatility in the communication of serious personal and medical issues they make possible when viewed in just such a manner. Comics can be the Rosetta Stone for medicine and religion. Walk in to any bookstore, shop online at any site, and you will not find medical textbooks and religious writings in the same area. It would seem as though the subject material of one section, brains and spleens and hospitals and blood, is distinct from that of the other section, divinity and angels and temples and prayer. With possibly the exception of mental health, medicine is steeped in the physical and corporeal. Likewise, with maybe the exception of sacred rituals, religion tends to operate in the transcendental and intangible. However, if we readily accept those distinctions and find them impermeable, then we are ignoring some great potential for advanced interplay between them. In fact, there are only 2 exceptions to this bookstore divide, but they're telling ones. Maybe you think I'm going to say comics. I'm not. Instead, the two categories in which medicine and religion might overlap are self-help and biography. Deepak Chopra and Dr. Oz might share shelf space in the self-help section, despite one addressing the subtle self and the other informing the physical. Likewise, the life story of Dr. Anthony Fauci could be placed beside that of Pope Francis without conflict. Just the opposite. Self-help and biography address the shared but perhaps hidden core of both medicine and religion, namely, wellness of the essential self. Personal health, whether that's physical, emotional, or spiritual, and they need not be mutually exclusive, drives much of the medicine and much of religion. And that's both the bridge and the center that comics can help traverse. Explore comics in the bookstore, and you begin to draw medicine and religion closer together than once thought. The hybrid medium of words and images causes them to intermingle, body and soul. For better or for worse, comics are customarily given their own section in this bookstore arrangement, under the classy and respectable title, Graphic Novels. It's within that strange designation that you might find the superhero genre loosely grouped together, then nonfiction works, then manga, I suppose. What you won't find, though, is Captain America separated from John Lewis or from Akira, based on their approaches to bodiliness or spirituality. In fact, you're more likely to get one volume of Captain America where he tries to thwart the release of a deadly virus next to another of his series where his soul and psyche are shunted off to another plane of existence. This is not a quirk of the superhero genre alone. Fantasy works like Sandman, supernatural titles like Hellboy, and any other comic subgenre will allow, and arguably invite, interplay between the corporeal and incorporeal. The genres of comics generally do not limit nor divide so much as advise and guide. Like the thin borders of their panels, comics offer little barrier to the interplay and synthesizing of such selfhood-driven fields. It's not all altruism and high principles here. Comics are a business. However, its design, perhaps due to its perceived origins as a juvenile, fringe medium, has distributors group works by publishers and sometimes big-time creators, but not generally speaking by content. It's not generally divided up by genre because historically and realistically, it can't be. That would be slicing the pie into wedges too thin. As such, we benefit from the built-in flexibility that allows varied content to commingle and even gradually synthesize. Superhero westerns, sci-fi romance, fantasy mysteries. This cross-wiring allows for more daring content to be delivered in a manner unique from any other mainstream medium. If this is the case, Mr. TED Talk speaker, why isn't it more apparent? Why isn't this versatility with comics more obvious and more showcased? If religion and medicine fit together so neatly here, why is it novel news as a TED Talk and a quiet aspect of the comics industry? Okay, first of all, that's Dr. TED Talk speaker. Thank you very much. I didn't go to 7 years of TED Talk school to be called Mr. But all joking aside, this is a good point. Why isn't this billed as a strength of comics, as a selling point for its community? Well, one answer is because no one is trying to sell comics as a medium. Creators are trying to sell their own comics, and companies are likewise trying to sell their catalog. Very few are arguing for the medium as a whole and its varied strengths, especially if those abilities promote their competitors' works as much as their own. This shared asset won't sell their particular title, and that's a problem. We have a medium that not only allows for immense variety and overlap, but also tends to be grouped and promoted in an intermingled fashion, yet the titles themselves are purchased in a separated, disunifying fashion specific to the buyer and their interests. We can't fault the consumer for this. It's not their job to buy thematically or according to some greater principle. The consumer returns to a categorized, separated view of the medium according to their own tastes and buying habits. That's their right, their prerogative, and marketing or publicity for such comics, whatever corporate or retail machines that lie behind them, will likely follow the consumer's interests surely. What I am asking us to do, unlike a consumer or a publisher or a retailer, is to appreciate and find merit in the synergy that comics makes possible, even if it's not their selling point. For instance, Pornsak Pietschot and Aaron Campbell's 2018 Infidel was praised for its portrayal of Muslims, but not for its compelling healthcare scenes. Conversely, something like Ellen Forney's 2012 Marbles may be lauded for its examination of bipolar disorder, but less investigated for its main character's relationship to Judaism. The opportunities are there, but they're not immediately open to commodification. They're buried treasure. When this sort of comic does garner attention, it is more for one aspect than the other. When Ian Williams's The Bad Doctor is assigned for a pre-med class, for instance, the religious imagery he uses often gets overlooked, naturally. A synagogue reading group may be daring and elect to do Sean Murphy's punk rock Jesus, but in all likelihood, the bioethics around cloning are skirted in favor of religious content. We can't expect all readers to engage with every aspect of a work, but we can point out that there is the opportunity here to do more. How easy, how intriguing was it to picture Superman in the afterlife? How does Daredevil look beside a true devil or a Hindu demon? Picture Thor, god of thunder, communing with a capital G God. The capacity and the creativity are undoubtedly there already. To accomplish this, we'll need to bypass some of the gatekeepers. If we want, for instance, to explore the healthcare and spiritual ethics informing a character like Doctor Strange, a master of both the medical and mystic arts, then interdisciplinary spaces must ally with stakeholders outside the bookstore system. The works we want and the ones that are offered are not necessarily one and the same unless you have a specific alliance with a local bookstore buyer or on campuses, the deans that authorize such orders. Connecting with creators directly will be the figurative shortest distance between 2 points. If you begin with the premises that 1, subjects of medicine and religion are intersecting in a compelling fashion in comics, and that 2, there is more content to be experienced than solely what is being offered through traditional retailers, then you have the verve to push for acquiring this select content. Managers will be willing to take larger risks. Academic departments will allow pre-purchasing and reimbursement. Libraries will welcome your innovative lists. And you'll be working from a position of authority by tapping into this natural element of comics. And it's already there. These books have all shown up on, say, an old syllabus somewhere, through an obscure self-publishing outlet, in an out-of-print bin, all of them. This reclamation only grows when it is also expanded to experimental sermons, daring religious school curricula, or New Age art circles. Finding this hidden history to such comics usage helps to build the present. Little inroads have been carved into academia and medical education for years, so much so that we would have little opposition in constructing a full-fledged parkway, finally. Artists will follow with their works, and administrators and gatekeepers, the ones we bypassed previously, will want to ride on this strip we've built. Over the last 10 years, numerous studies, each one small and modest, have statistically established the efficacy of graphic medicine. Patient adherence to discharge instructions is boosted by 150% through comics. Anxiety drops by 12% for cardiology patients reading informed consent comics rather than purely written ones. Children with JIA maintain information about their condition 17% better through comics than those without, and a year and a half after reading them. The data is there, but it remains diffuse and humble. The rise of graphic medicine, health humanities, narrative medicine, and medical humanities fields all testify to the appetite for wider materials being brought to bear on human biological science. To extend that into theology and religious studies makes this opportunity all the richer. Comics can provide the biocultural bridge that makes the fervor of the faithful fit the frame of the physician. It can be that space where the whole human is considered. Let's expand the texts that medicine considers and sharpen our narrative capacity for a medium of deeper potential. Comics like The Bag Doctor, or Lissa, or even the Pulitzer Prize-winning Mouse, can play in medical and spiritual affairs simultaneously. If they can deliver a keener language, not only for patients, clinicians, and educators, but also for minority faith communities and religious groups, then we have the responsibility to pursue this endeavor. The body and soul of Superman lay exposed before us on the overlapping mortal border between life and death. It is time to train our tools to tend to this empaneled being. It's time for religion and medicine together to get serious about comics. Thank you.